there was a teacher who was leading an art class, and she had her children, said you have half an hour, and you can just draw whatever you want to. And so the kids got out their colored pencils and some paper, and they started drawing, and the teacher walked around observing what was going on. And as she got to this little girl in the back row, she looked down and said, "Tell me about what you're drawing." And the little girl said, "I'm drawing God." And the teacher said, "But no one knows what God looks like." And the little girl said, "They will in a few minutes." Nobody knows what God looks like, and nobody really fully understands who God is. But we know that each time we experience something new in our relationships, each time we experience forgiveness and love and the idea that we are wanted even in situations where we don't feel like we are, anytime we experience something new that our culture usually doesn't embrace, we experience a little more detailed and larger picture of who God is. And that's what this story of the prodigal son is all about. Prodigal son isn't someone who left and came back. Prodigal son is a son that went out and foolishly spent his money and the family income. It has nothing to do with going away and coming back. It has to do with severing the family ties by going outside the family tradition of working hard and saving money and taking care of yourself. And this one went far enough away that he could spend the money the way he wanted to, and it was just kind of foolishly done. And he came to the end of his rope, and finally, after he was sitting slopping hogs and thinking that even my father's slaves have it better than this, he decides to try to go back to his father and ask, "Can I come back and be a slave at your house?" And the father runs and embraces him. And a beautiful thing that is a symbol here that we don't often know about is that one of the things the father calls the slaves to come and give to his lost son is sandals on his feet, because that showed that this person was not a slave, but was a property owner, because slaves did not wear shoes. They went barefoot. And here was this young man wanting to come back and be a slave. And his father said, "Oh no, you're my son. You're going to have all the privileges that I want to give you. Put on these sandals. It shows the whole world that you're mine." And it shows the whole world that knows that this young son had gone away and was spending his money foolishly with women of ill repute, that he had been accepted back into his father's house. He had shoes on. He was accepted back. And the world then that they knew had to deal with the idea that this father reached beyond cultural norms and welcomed this son back who had spent time with prostitutes and bad living, had welcomed him back in forgiveness and brought him into his home. He could have been stoned. The community could have stoned this guy for living the way he was and acting the way he was. But the father rushed out and got him before any of the neighbors could see that he was back and say, "You're mine. You're safe. No matter what you've done, you're safe. And you're mine." And that's a message to the world. As I was putting these thoughts together today, or for today, I came across this film strip on forgiveness and reconciliation. And I don't know how familiar you are with the Genesis genocide that went on in Rwanda in 1994. Started in April, went through July, and it was a case where in Rwanda there were at least 2 and probably 3 groups of racial people, 3 racial groups of people. And there were the Hutus and the Tutsis, and then a different form of the Hutus. So there were these 3 races, and the Tutsis were the smallest group. The Hutus were the largest, yet the Tutsis were in charge. They were running the country. And finally, the Hutus began to rebel and take things over, and the way they took over was to start killing all the Tutsis. And between April and July, over 800,000 Tutsis were killed or pushed out of the country, relocated. And so you have this group of people that are suffering the loss of their families. 800,000 people are killed because they have done nothing other than being born a Tutsi and in the empowering culture. So there's a new program out in that country, in Rwanda, and it's called AMI, and I can't pronounce the names, what that means. But it is a program where the government is trying to take the Hutus, who did the killing, and the Tutsis, who are survivors of the killing, and teach them about reconciliation and forgiveness. Because they know that if the country is going to go forward, they've got to embrace this. They've got to be able to embrace forgiveness and reconciliation. I can't imagine how hard that would be to do. I can't imagine. But I want to show you a few slides of people who were the perpetrators and the victims, and tell you a little bit about them as we go along. This first one are two men, and the guy on the left, Francois, is the perpetrator. He did the killing, and Christophe is the survivor. And it said, I asked him for forgiveness because his brother was killed in my presence. He asked me why I pleaded guilty, and I replied that I did it as someone who witnessed this crime but was unable to save anybody. It was the order from authorities. I let him know who the killers were, and the killers also asked him for pardon. And Christophe said in reply, sometimes justice does not give someone a satisfactory answer. Cases are subject to corruption, but when it comes to forgiveness willingly granted, one is satisfied once and for all. When someone is full of anger, he can lose his mind. But when I granted forgiveness, I felt my mind at rest. This is Jean-Pierre and Viviane. Jean-Pierre was the perpetrator, Viviane the victim. I burned her house. I attacked her in order to kill her and her children, but God protected them and they escaped. When I was released from jail, if I saw her, I would run and hide. Then this program started to provide us with trainings. I decided to ask her for forgiveness, to have good relationships with the person to whom you did evil deeds. We thank God. And Viviane's replied, I used to hate him. When he came to my house and knelt down before me and asked for forgiveness, I was moved by his sincerity. Now, if I cry for help, he comes to rescue me. When I face any issue, I know I can call him. You notice on all of these pictures. They have come to stand in the same place and have their pictures taken, but there is no joy on their faces. No joy on their faces. Next one. Godfrey was the perpetrator, and Evasta is the survivor. And we have the wrong picture. I damaged and looted her property. I spent 9.5 years in jail. I had been educated to know good from evil before being released. And when I came home, I thought it would be good to approach the person to whom I did evil. I told her that I would stand by her with all the means at my disposal. My own father was involved in killing her children. When I learned that my parent had behaved wickedly, for that I profoundly begged her pardon. My husband was hiding, and men hunted him down and killed him on a Tuesday. The following Tuesday, they came back and killed my 2 sons. I was hoping that my daughters would be saved, but they took them to my husband's village and killed them and threw them in the latrine. I was not able to remove them from that hole. I knelt down and prayed for them along with my younger brother and covered the latrine with dirt. The reason I granted pardon is because I realized that I would never get back the beloved ones I had lost. I could not live a lonely life. I wondered if I was ill, who was going to stay by my bedside, and if I was in trouble and cried for help, who was going to rescue me. I preferred to grant forgiveness. Next. Let's go on to the next one. The perpetrator on the right. When I was still in jail, President Kagame stated that the prisoners who would plead guilty and ask pardon would be released. I was among the first ones to do this. Once I was outside, it was also necessary to ask pardon to the victim. Mother Cecilia could not have known I was involved in the killings of her children, but I told her what happened. When she granted me pardon, all the things in my heart that had made her look at me like a wicked man faded away. Many among us, she is saying, had experienced the evils of war many times, and I was asking myself what I was created for. The internal voice used to tell me, it is not fair to avenge your beloved one. It took time, but in the end, we realized that we are Rwandans. The genocide was due to bad governance that set neighbors, brothers, and sisters against one another. Now you accept and you forgive. The person you have forgiven becomes a good neighbor. One feels peaceful and thinks well of the future. Go on to the next one. Just look at the faces of these people. These two actually would hold hands, even though he had come in and killed her parents and her children. And she said that unless you forgive, you have no hope for life. Unless you forgive, you have no hope for life. Next. I love the look on this woman's face, Beatrice, because Lauren did the same to her as many of the others, took away her family, tore down her house, and left her all by herself. I can't imagine what that was like. To come in and have people to come into your house and kill everyone you know and love. To tear down your house that you had built, which was a home, a safe haven for your children, and have them all killed and your house demolished. And then I can hardly imagine at all these people coming back later and saying, I'm the one who did this to you. I'm the one who took your children and your husband. I'm the one who tore down your house. And I'm here to ask your forgiveness. Yeah. You see, this is the picture that says prodigal son and father to me. It is the same kind of picture that we have been looking at because it is a son who had gone out and lived in a terrible way, an irresponsible way, and went through half of his father's estate that the father willingly gave to him. And afterwards, he came back to his father and said, I know, I wasted your money. I shamed you, and I shamed my community. But I wonder, will you forgive me? And will you let me come back and be part of your life? Because we're all Rwandans. And we need to live with each other and move forward. These are terrible examples of tragedies, but we have those in our own lives too. We have people that we have fought with and argued with. We have people who have disagreed with us and slandered us and hurt us. We have people who have mistreated us at work, or governments that we are mad at, or other people that have done us harm. And yet God asks us to be like the prodigal son story. To go to these people and say, I know we have differences, and I know at sometimes I would say, I hate you. And I know at sometimes I feel like I wish God would take you from this earth. But I also know we have the same God. And that same God wants us to live in peace and harmony with one another. And so I ask, will you forgive me for the way I have treated you? And may I forgive you for the way you have treated me? And may we begin to work together to make life better for all of us. You see, the step of forgiveness is just one of the first processes, first steps. It's like the pictures of our people from Rwanda. They had gone through mentally the understanding that I need to forgive. And if I'm going to go forward, I need to forgive. And they would stand there and come together in the same picture, which I think is just amazing. And they would stand there and say, I forgive. But the joy hasn't come back yet. The joy hasn't come back yet. And so when you take that step of forgiveness, don't be surprised if the joy isn't there. Maybe for a long time. But know that you have gone in the right direction and that the joy will come because we have a God who loves us and welcomes us back and puts sandals on our feet and a coat on us and says, you are my son, my daughter, and I welcome you to my arms.